All right, let's jump right in. Today in this explainer, we're diving into the widely misunderstood but honestly deeply fascinating world of emotional numbness. We live in a society that really expects loud reactions to stress, right? We expect the tears, the visible panic, the raised voices. But what actually happens when the volume just completely drops out and the world goes completely quiet? Well, today we are decoding the science and the psychology behind emotional shutdown.
Let's start by validating a really intense, incredibly isolating experience. Have you ever felt absolutely nothing when everyone around you expects you to be panicking or crying? Picture it. You're physically present in a room, maybe during a family crisis or some major life event, but mentally, you're miles away. Conversations are happening right in front of you, but you just kind of can't connect to the meaning of the words. If you've ever felt that profound emptiness when you fully expected to be overwhelmed, trust me, you are not alone.
So here is the absolute crucial point we need to make right off the bat. This numbness, it's not a sign of apathy. It doesn't mean you have a broken personality. Having that thought, I know I should feel something right now, but I just don't, can bring up a ton of guilt. But this is not a conscious choice. It's definitely not a character flaw. As we're going to see throughout this explainer, it is an ancient, hardwired biological defense mechanism. Literally, your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, protecting you from an internal state that just feels like way too much to bear.
Okay, let's move into section 1. When you feel nothing, the invisible experience. It's really helpful to think of your nervous system kind of like a car engine. When we face stress, sometimes we smash the gas pedal all the way down. That is hyperarousal. It's your classic fight-or-flight response, full of anxiety and panic. But other times, our system does the exact opposite and just slams on the brakes. This is hypoarousal, or the freeze response. Your alertness completely plummets, and everything simply shuts down.
And hey, this isn't just some modern internet buzzword. People have been talking about this profound disconnection for centuries. Check out this journal entry from way back in 1880. The philosopher Henri Frederick Amiel literally questioned if his detachment was a form of madness. But what he was describing was just a textbook dissociative state. It's a feeling that is echoed throughout all of human history whenever the mind is pushed past its breaking point.
Which brings us to section 2, the biology of shutting down, your nervous system's emergency brake.
So what's actually happening under the hood? During overwhelming stress, the dorsal branch of your vagus nerve, which runs all the way from your brainstem down to your abdomen, completely takes over. When your brain decides, okay, we can't fight and we can't run away from this massive threat, it initiates what's called a dorsal vagal shutdown. It essentially forces a profound freeze state to conserve your energy. It is the exact biological equivalent of an animal playing dead to survive a predator it knows it can't outrun.
Building on that, we have to talk about vagal tone. Your vagal tone essentially dictates how flexibly your nervous system can shift back and forth between a stress state and a feeling of safety. A higher vagal tone, that means your system's resilient. It can bounce back after something stressful. And we actually measure this through heart rate variability, or HRV. A lower vagal tone, though, leaves your nervous system super vulnerable. It means your body can easily get stuck on high alert, or, in our case, stuck in a really deep shutdown.
Now, look at this breakdown, because there is a massive difference between a healthy, temporary biological pause and a nervous system that has gotten stuck. An acute shutdown is just a short-term reaction to a specific stressor, literally your body hitting pause to recover for a few hours or maybe a couple of days. But a chronic shutdown, that persists way beyond the immediate threat. When stress or trauma is prolonged, your body gets trapped in that hypoarousal state for weeks or even months, which obviously severely disrupts your everyday life.
Moving on to section 3, understanding DPDR, which stands for depersonalization derealization disorder.
To really understand this, we need to separate the feeling of your own body being alien from the feeling that the world around you isn't real. With depersonalization, you might feel like you're just an outside observer of your own thoughts. It's like you're watching your own life play out on a movie screen. Derealization, on the other hand, projects that detachment outward. The actual world around you might start to look visually distorted, totally two-dimensional, or just incredibly foggy and dreamlike. And get this, DPDR actually affects 1 to 2% of the general population. Now, a lot of people experience brief, mild moments of feeling unreal, sure, but this statistic represents the full clinical disorder. That makes it so much more common than most people ever realize. It's kind of a wild reminder of just how many people are walking around right now fighting a completely invisible battle with their own basic perception of reality.
Even wilder?
80% or more of these cases begin during childhood and adolescence, and research shows this is very often strongly linked to early emotional abuse and interpersonal trauma. Think about it. When a child is stuck in an environment where they have absolutely no physical escape from chronic fear or boundary violations, their nervous system adapts in literally the only way it can, by mentally pulling the plug and disconnecting.
All right, Section 4, Risks of Staying Numb, the Danger of Artificial Feeling.
Here's the sad truth. When the world is completely muted, the human drive to feel literally anything can lead to some really dangerous, though completely understandable, coping mechanisms. People sometimes turn to substance abuse just to chase a spark of euphoria. Some turn to self-harm simply to feel a physical sensation because their emotions are completely flat. Others might socially isolate or even overeat because comfort foods can temporarily drop the impact of stress hormones like cortisol. And while these behaviors might offer a split second of relief, ultimately, they just reinforce that painful cycle of emotional numbness.
So, what do we do about it? Section 5. How to thaw out, bringing the system back online. Let's talk solutions. These are immediate grounding steps designed to gently wake your nervous system back up, using your 5 senses without overwhelming it all over again. Grabbing something freezing, like an ice pack, can sharply pull your awareness right back into your physical body. The 5-4-3-2-1 technique basically forces your brain to process the room around you. And even just gentle movement, like swaying or doing some really light stretching, helps restore a sense of physical agency. It reminds your body, hey, we are not trapped anymore. But you can't just ice pack your way out of deep trauma. To avoid what psychologists call nervous system bypassing, which is basically just relying on surface-level quick fixes, you really have to engage in the clinical depth work to heal the root causes. Talk therapy isn't always enough for a nervous system that is fundamentally stuck in survival mode. That is exactly why modalities like EMDR and trauma-focused CBT are so absolutely crucial. They help those deeper, primitive parts of the brain realize the threat has actually passed, which allows that frozen energy to finally thaw out.
And if you need some biological hope, check out this incredible stat. One study showed an overall 68% improvement in DBDR symptoms using targeted magnetic brain stimulation. By applying repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, or RTMS, specifically to the temporal parietal junction of the brain, researchers saw just remarkable recovery in patients whose symptoms had stubbornly resisted every other treatment out there. It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that bringing the system back online is biologically possible.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with something to think about. The next time you find yourself going completely blank or feeling totally numb under intense stress, how are you going to react? Instead of spiraling into shame, can we maybe offer our hardwired survival mechanisms a little bit of self-compassion? Remember, your mind isn't broken. It performed an absolutely incredible feat of survival by absorbing the impact of events that were just way too large to process at the time. Thank you so much for joining me today to unpack this. See you next time.